Welcome to the Rich Report, a podcast with news and information on high performance computing. Today, my guest is Bob Murphy. He's from Panasas. Bob, welcome to the show today.
Hey, Rich, thanks. Great to see you again.
You bet. I can see you.
Yeah, we go back a long time, don't we, man?
Yeah, we really do.
Yeah.
Well, now you're at Panasas. Why don't we start there? Who is Panasas and who do you guys help?
Well, Rich, thanks. Panasas is one of the leading parallel file system providers in the world. You know, it's right there, came out at the same time as Lustre and GPFS. And we have been in business for many, many years, built up a large following and customer base, over 500 customers, some of the leading players in all the verticals: aerospace, automotive, life sciences, government, academia. And what really sets us apart versus everyone else, and we'll go into that in more detail, is that we provide all the performance and price performance now with our new product as all the other parallel file systems out there. But what sets us different, we're uniquely easy to deploy, easy to manage, and have tremendous uptime and reliability versus some of the more complex offerings out there.
Well, terrific, Bob. Well, why don't we go through your talk and I'll ask you some questions at the end.
Okay, Rich, I know you saw some of these slides earlier, and you particularly was interested in this one, which I was kind of surprised about because a lot of this stuff is I thought, more common knowledge. Let's just go through it. A lot of things happening in the parallel file system space in particular, high performance computing. That's the market that we're in, and this is the kind of the offerings that are out there. I think the big one is there's a quote up there in the upper left. Let's talk about Lustre. And this is actually from a director of research computing at a major university. She said this, that Lustre is no longer open source. And she really captured what I'm trying to communicate, is that you know, if anyone, you know the history of Lustre all the way back. And you know, Sun was a great steward of Lustre. And then Intel picked it up and was, again, a great steward of Lustre. But a year plus ago, Intel got out of the Lustre development and support business, and DDN very astutely picked it up. And so now the ultimate, L3, L4 support and development traces it back to either DDN or Cray. And that kind of effectively has made it a captive file system for those two vendors. There's other people out there that are still selling Lustre systems and supporting Lustre systems on their own. But ultimately, when they have to get development or really technical support, they have to either go to one of those two people. And then a lot of that attractiveness of Lustre, being open source and having the open source vendor freedom to pick and choose different vendors is now diminished for a lot of folks. But we'll talk more about that in the kind of the next category down. Is GPFS curtailed at DDN. A couple years ago, word got out that for whatever reason, IBM stopped DDN from selling anything beyond version 4 of GPFS. But what has happened is, and I just became aware of it looking at that email storm over the weekend, is that the current customers, if you're on version 4, you have a grid scaler and you're on version 4, you can't go anywhere. You're stuck. And it's a big problem. They can't upgrade to version 5 on their systems. And they can't get it from anyone else because they've got this DDN hardware that DDN can't support it with version 5, and IBM doesn't know anything about the DDN hardware to support it. So those hundreds of GPFS, and there are hundreds of them, DDN systems out there are stuck on version 4. And if they want to go to version 5, they basically have been told they've got to go to buy all new licenses, because they don't even have the rights to the license, like a lot of people that bought the license directly from IBM have. The licenses actually, the rights to it are owned by DDN. So they're really stuck. And we're going to talk about who are the biggest winners and losers in this space, or this situation in 2020. But I think an early candidate as the biggest losers are the customers of DDN that are stuck with the GPFS version 4 with really nowhere else to go other than buying all new hardware and all new software from another vendor like IBM or other OEMs. Then let's go back to IBM now. Lots of changes there. IBM during all that time was a really sweet deal. They had what they call a capacity license. It was actually socket based, and a lot of the OEMs like DDN and others would actually create single socket servers to load GPFS on to optimize that license cost. And that's all changed moving forward. They're adding a capacity license, which allows more revenue to come into IBM, but it does make it less attractive, particularly in the HPC space, which requires, in addition to a lot of performance, huge capacity. And then we have the all the new features that IBM is coming out with, and they're really compelling features, but they add them on as special edition, premium editions, and again, that does increase the costs from what people have. Well, the great thing about what's going on is all this turmoil in the industry has made Panasas allow us to get another look. Then you got us in the middle, and as you know, following Panasas, I followed Panasas before I got there. Everyone, thought very highly of Panasas, but we were on those early 2000-ish type of architecture blades servers, right? You know what I'm talking about. They look great, and they were super reliable. But because we were developing our own hardware and our own bespoke hardware, we were always a tick-tock behind everyone else in the industry that was just deploying on commercially available off-the-shelf standard hardware. And we changed all that last year, hallelujah. And we are now in the hunt again with our COTS hardware. That was the really seminal event for Panasas that got us back in the price performance and performance game, while still keeping all that great reliability and ease of management and great support that the company is unique in this field to providing. So we'll talk more about that. So anyway, and then BGFS again was really exciting coming out of the gate. I remember going over to ISC just a couple of years ago, and they were everywhere, just everywhere. They're out of Germany, and we're really had a great adoption in Germany, and then over here in the U.S., people have started to deploy it too. I think a lot of it is coming from the Luster situation, and but it's also new, relatively new. It's much simpler and more bare bones to Luster, so it's not quite as complex. But we do have reports of it being unreliable from customers. I was just talking to one up in the West Coast of the United States, Life Sciences Research Institute, and they had just had experienced double metadata server failure there, that they lost data. And then lastly, Isilon is out there. They've had some support issues that everyone when Isilon was Isilon itself, and then it became part of EMC. It was still a lot of focus. You could find the right people that knew about the product, etc. But as they get more and more absorbed in the bigger Dell galaxy, that's I hear is an issue getting the right support. It's also very expensive, and rightfully so. It does provide great uptime and reliability and ease of management, but it does leave an opening for Cumulo. And so what I wanted to go through, Rich, is again who are the losers and winners in this space. I think the biggest losers are probably the GPFS customers on DDN. They have nowhere else to go. I think, ironically, one of the biggest winners is DDN because they've just taken that situation with GPFS and have just pivoted to a whole new business model, which they're doing really well at. And then ironically, you think that Panasas is one of the winners in this space, and we are to a certain extent. A lot, we have the new product, and we also are taking advantage of this churn in the marketplace. But actually, the biggest winner here I think you'd be surprised for me to say this, is Isilon. Because what I've been seeing over a few times more recently is that a lot of these organizations that have been experiencing these problems with BGFS and Lustre, and actually GPFS too, is that the corporate IT has come in, said, okay, you're not allowed to risk the mission of the organization anymore. I know, you've got this high performance computing environment, and it's backed up with this very high performance storage system, but it's providing so much unreliability, and it's putting the company's mission at risk, that we're coming in now. And more times than not, because they, as you know, corporate IT has a completely different view of storage versus high performance computing kind of departments, is they are bringing in Isilon to solve the problem. So we talked about the history of Panasas, and really it's always been known for great reliability and manageability, et cetera. But the new product has really brought us back to the forefront of performance and price performance. Let me just show you on the right there. We have a limited time special offer going out now. We really wanted to get the message that we're competitive on a price performance and price metric. And we've had this out on and off since the introduction of the product. 1 petabyte, 16 gigabytes per second for $150,000, which is phenomenal. It's like half the price of what I've seen. The products from IBM, GPFS, DDN, any of the quote unquote tier 1 suppliers of appliance parallel file system solutions. And so that has gotten tons of attention. I literally would put that slide up, and more times than not, the eyes would pop out of the customer that I was presenting it to. And then over there on the left, if you do a comparative benchmarks of our systems, and this is trying to match all the systems up, kind of more apples to apples. All these systems out there are different sizes. They have different number of disks in them. They have different processor to disk ratios, et cetera, et cetera. And it shows that we're almost twice as fast as all the other systems out there. So we can get data on and off a disk drive almost twice as fast as all our competitors. And so what that means is for any capacity, like if we're quoting a 1 petabyte system, that's usually how HP systems are size. They say, okay, I need this many petabytes. Well, here's 1 petabyte. Will be twice as fast as an equivalent system from DDN Lustre or IBM GPFS or a BGFS system. Here's an example of the scale out capability of our system. This is a typical kind of a response curve for all the parallel file systems out there. As far as, as you add more resources, more storage servers, you get pretty linear response. That's the great thing about parallel file systems. That's why they're the architecture of choice for HPC workloads. If you look at Isilon, for example, which again is surprisingly, but because of its great reliability and ease of management versus some of the other parallel file systems out there besides Panasas, it is deployed out there very commonly. But the issue that people have is that because of the nature or the architecture of a scale-out NAS system, and not just Isilon, but NetApp's systems and Cumulo and Vast Data, they're all scale-out NAS. They all use the NFS protocol, which again is very convenient for customers, very reliable, and all these organizations provide great support versus the other parallel file system companies, is that the architecture innately starts to break down as more and more load is put on it. I've seen this at big rendering studio houses and animation and media entertainment, at big life sciences organizations. And a lot of the time, you see that this actually is from a graph from Dell, their life sciences architecture white paper. They actually compare the Isilon performance on this workload. This is a big genomics workload where they're just firing a lot of sequence runs at the storage system, that they're actually comparing it to their Lustre parallel file system in their stable, and that shows you the typical response curve of a parallel file system, and then the more susceptible to load response curve of a scale-out NAS system. Then the other part of this talk is referencing a presentation, a study that's actually up on your website, Rich. It's the state of HPC storage, requirements and challenges by Steve Conway of the Hyperion Group. They did a survey for us, and it's all up on our website, and you'll see that by the time all this is released. You could see that one of the big findings, he went out and surveyed all these HPC organizations all over the world, industrial, academic, research labs, and almost half of the surveyed sites experienced storage system failures once a month or more. And downtimes ranged each time there was a failure from less than a day to more than a week. Incredible. And then a single day of downtime costs from under $100,000 to more than $1 million. So this is some of the slides from the survey. And I think you and I, we talked about this before because you were at the Argonne HPC user conference that we first talked about this stuff. On the left there is the most important HPC storage purchase criteria. And you can see that, surprise, surprise, performance was, the #1 purchase criteria for an HPC storage system. That should be no surprise. Then, the price goes down. But what I was really surprised, maybe I shouldn't have been, but if you look down there as far as number of staff required, vendor support, recovery resiliency, software support, those were so far down the list that for a company like Panasas that really focuses on those differentiators, it was kind of disheartening to see that. But then, over there on the right is Steve asked some other questions, and what were your biggest operational issues now that you had those systems in there, and this is what you bought based on that purchase criteria. Oh my gosh, #1 is recruiting and training storage experts, and that was the thing that got picked up in social after you put it up on your website, and that got resolved as it's really tough to find people now. The battle for talent is everywhere, including in HPC storage. And if people were able to find people to run these systems in the past, it's getting tougher and tougher all the time. Install costs that came next, and then administration costs, and then system downtime is last. Actually, right after at our user group meeting that you had reported on, after Steve presented, we had one of our customers present. This actually is ASRC Federal. They are an integrator, and they're a managed service provider that provides a lot of HPC services all over the country. And one of them is actually one of the largest consumer products company in the world. You can guess who it is, but that bottle there is a famous bottle. It's in everyone's cabinet, and it's colored orange typically, and it's doing finite element modeling there. This company does a variety of HPC, as you know. They're well known what they do there. They use a lot of different analyses in their workflows to support the company's functions. And right after Steve talked, and again, all these videos are up on our website, is this customer basically said, we have experienced 8 years of no downtime, no unplanned downtime with our Panasas. And that's a phenomenal number. That is like, 99.99999. And it was funny, he kind of asked everyone to knock on wood before he said it. But, unscripted from us and, all these findings that I'm finding, his point is that a reliable file system is, so in so many levels, so cost effective across the organization versus, just buying something based on performance and price, just like we saw from the original results of the survey. He was saying, hey, there's a lot more to that, and as far as you're trying to measure costs. He was kind of saying, some of these costs you can't measure, but let me tell you, TCO goes far beyond the cost of the hardware support and administration costs. If you have a down system, and if that company that you're at can't get its job done, schedules are slipped, product quality gets compromised, and actually the whole organization's mission can be put at risk. And was really a contrast versus the state of the art in HPC storage versus what everyone else is experiencing. So Rich, we're coming down to the end. Thanks for hanging in there. This is actually, when we're talking to customers, this is the most popular slide that people really, really, really want to absorb. We've talked about the state of the art in HPC storage. And I have the example candidates there. I've got IBM Spectrum Scale, I've got Lustre, I've got BGFS, and again, acknowledged great performance and competitive acquisition costs. And hats off to them. They are mapping directly to the top two criteria that we've seen in that HPC survey. And then they fall off as far as when reliability, easy management, and support, and just overall frustration that the customer experiences. There's a lot to be desired there. They don't deliver it. And you can see that, again, going back to those original survey results, hey, they are exactly catering to their customers' requirements. If I was in their space, I would completely understand where they're coming from. A lot of people will say, hey, you know what, I'm not going to get the most highest performance system at the best price. I work at a company, and that company or an organization, a life science organization, whatever, the stuff I'm doing is so important. I'm not going to take a risk on these systems because I've heard about the horror stories of these systems. And honestly, Rich, if I was in their shoes, I would be. If I didn't know about Panasas, I would do the same thing. I'd go to Isilon, I'd go to NetApp, I'd go to some one of these companies so I could sleep at night. So that's the situation there. And actually on a numerical basis, there's probably way more people that do that doing HPC than using all these parallel file systems. But what really the key point is, and again, people agree with what we're saying here, is that we are unique and that we provide, we check off all the boxes. We provide the performance and now the price performance of our new system with all the enterprise level reliability, management, and support that people want from the likes of Isilon and NetApp, et cetera. And we provide it all. And that's really the value proposition for Panasas. Here's the summary. Lots of changes going on in the industry, and most of them are negatively impacting HPC customers. And I think you're not going to get a lot of pushback on that. Again, enter that in the comments below. Panasas is back with leadership performance and price performance, so please check us out. If you know Panasas, just get updated with the new product. It's going to be something that I think you're really going to appreciate taking a look at us again. There's a chronic HP storage downtime, and it's costing organizations millions. And to date, it's been a hidden cost. I don't think people have added it up. They knew, oh yeah, our systems are down, and we'll just bring it back up again. But they don't know the aggregate costs of that because this is actually out of their mouths, and it has never been edited up together. And then we provide tools and all the evidence to support this on our website. So take a look at that. And then the big thing is because of the new Panasas price performance and price advantages that we have, organizations no longer need to risk their mission with unreliable storage. They don't have to go to Isilon or NetApp or some of the more acknowledged reliable players out there. They could get that reliability and that great support from us, and also the great performance that they come to expect from a parallel file system. And we are the alternative. Okay, Rich, I'm sorry I'm so excited about the product and the new Panasas. I know I took a lot of more time than you thought, but again, I appreciate the opportunity to tell your viewers about our story.
Well, great, Bob. You answered a lot of my questions, so thanks for that. I think back on slide 3 or so, you were showing this cost performance thing, and I wanted to look at that because the way the HPC market, the way they get performance is they add drives, they add nodes, right? That's a parallel file system.
Absolutely.
You're able to achieve performance without doubling the drive size. How are you able to do that technically?
So that was this slide right here. Sorry, I probably talked so much that I lost the main message from everything I was so excited about talking. So we are able to get data on and off our systems much faster than our competition because we have this combination of small files going to SSDs. So it typically, I compared that previous system to all hard disk drive-based systems or hybrid systems that have flash and hard drives in them. And so they're mixing small files and big files all on the same media, eventually the hard drive. And what we do is we take those very pesky small files that get intermixed in the workflow of big files, and we send them to a completely different device, the SSD. And so we could set up a read from a hard disk drive, and it's like this big, long, sequential read. There's no little files in the mix of that long sequential read, and it just gives us that type of performance just by isolating the large files. That one benchmark I showed was IOR, which is a kind of a big file performance, streaming performance benchmark. That combined with the intent log, when we're doing writes, we do writes to the architecture, and that allows us to do a very fast write to the system and immediately acknowledge that as a safe write. That's kind of a big delay in a lot of systems.
Well, great, Bob. So if our listeners are out there and their ears perk up, how do they engage with Panasas and kick the tires? How do they benchmark? How does it work?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So that's great. So we want to be benchmarked. We have POC systems that we would just love to send out to people to try out. We have several systems out in our partners all over the world, and we are benchmarking like crazy. And the best way is to engage us at panasas.com, and we'll either hook you up with a benchmark system in-house or at one of our partner sites, or send you a system. We're all for that. We want to have our system go through its paces, try it out. That's really the best way to confirm everything I've been saying here.
Well, great. Well, Bob, this has been very entertaining. Appreciate it. And thanks for coming on the show today.
Hey, Rich, it's always a pleasure. It's great to see you again. Look forward to having a beer with you. Let's see if we can get there in person.
That'd be terrific.
Yep.
All right, Bob. That's it for the Rich Report, folks. Stay tuned for more news and information on high performance computing.